Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to see you all over here. Welcome to Remote Fest. I'll start with a quick introduction about myself. My name is Hamza Tahir. I am the head of developer relations and community at Remotebase. Today, I have one of the most amazing person that I work with at Remotebase. This session is going to be this session is going to be on the topic of future of technology stacks, and I have Talha Masood, co-founder and CTO of Remotebase. Thank you, Talha, for joining us.
Thank you, Hamza, for having me. I mean, it's a pleasure. I mean, it's has always been a pleasure working with you and sitting here today in front of you. I mean, it feels good. Feels good.
Yeah, it's I equally enjoy the honor as well. But just adding a bit on this topic. But before we actually touch the topic, I would love to just talk about remote base, because since your experience working and leading a company like remote base that hires top talent from all over the world, and having clients which are billion-dollar companies in Silicon Valley like Swivel, Placer, Atoms, and all the other big companies. So hiring the talent from all over the world, and looking for a particular niche of engineers that are in super demand in Silicon Valley. With all that experience, this brings me to my first questions. What do you think about, which are the top five best tech stacks for engineers to adopt in 2022?
Sounds fair. I mean, it's a very controversial topic. If I am going to list out top five tech stacks, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to say, no, this is not the correct order. This is the correct order. So, I mean, it changes from context to context.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to have a very good work on MERN stack, and sometimes you have to work on PHP. By the way, on that topic, I was before coming to this session, I was reading that 43 of the websites in around the world still are based out of WordPress. So
Wow.
that means the LAMP stack is still going. It's going pretty strong. Unfortunately, we never hire for the LAMP stack, so I'm not going to be telling you guys what are the top, five stacks in order that are pretty famous around the world, because I myself don't know. But I'm going to give you what are the tech stacks that our clients use primarily. So again, Remotebase works with startups anywhere that are in a late seed stage to being tech unicorn. So I've seen recently that recently we onboarded a company, Fabric, which uses Golang on the backend, and then we have other companies that have started using Golang. So here in Silicon Valley, we never use the PHP stack. No, not never, but not a lot of startups use the PHP stack. But what we've seen here in Silicon Valley, that MERN stack tops every time. So we primarily also hire for the MERN stack, and a lot of startups here in Silicon Valley, they use MERN stack. It's based out of JavaScript on the back end, JavaScript on the front end, and it's pretty hot these days. And we obviously hire a lot for this stack. And then with the bigger companies, I've seen that they have started moving to languages like Python on the back end and Golang on the back end. So it's again very contextual. Okay, if we have a company like Fabric, which is a headless CMS, and we're serving a user instantaneously, or with minimum amount of time on the backend is important. So they would go with the language like Golang on the backend. And then we have Fabric that uses AI heavily, Fireflies that uses Merge Stack for their application development, and for the AI part, they use Python a lot. In Remotebase basis core product, we have Amazon Amplify on the backend and React on the front end. So why did we make this choice? Is because we wanted to go with a serverless backend, because it's easy to scale. At Remotebase, we have a very multi-tenant system, and the best part is that we have a micro front-end oriented architecture on the front end. So we needed a very flexible UI library, and React was our obvious choice on the front end. And then for a backend, we also needed a very flexible system using microservices, serving through GraphQL. And also, all in all, I mean, choosing a stack is very contextual. So it depends on what you're solving for, and what is your vision with the product? How long do you think it's going to be around, and how much is it going to scale? So you have to answer a lot of questions before deciding that this is the top. These are the top five solution stacks that are very much relevant to me, or that are very relevant to my case. So it's just my opinion here.
Yeah, I totally agree to that, and thank you so much for elaborating it. And I know, like, since at remote base we have different clients, right? And the demands that comes from the clients, at times it actually, like, defines on the stacks that we're hiring for as well. But at the same time, there's especially, like, there's so much engineers that are still in universities, or engineers that are learning about different stacks that are coming out of coming out these years. Just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to ask, like, for early stage developers, or developers who want to change their stack,
Mm-hmm.
some suggestions. Why is getting your tech stack right is so crucial, right? Like, for them, for the
Mm-hmm.
early stage developers, and for the developers who are already working .NET or like any other tech stack out.
Mm-hmm. Sounds fair, and you're right here. So at universities, so at least I remember my time. I graduated back in 2013, and the only language I knew was PHP and .NET, and they were not very. They used to be very useful back then, but I'm sure if I graduated like in 2021, both of these stacks are not very relevant. Again, I'm not saying not stop using PHP or .NET. It's just they are not very relevant here in the Bay Area, at least. So your question, what stacks, why stacks are crucial? Primarily, probably, comes from or stems from the fact that in Pakistan, learning a skill is very, very important. You go through a very small boot camp of, let's say, 6 months that, makes you and tries to make you ready for a job, or maybe working with any Silicon Valley based startup. So when you're going through such boot camps, so tech stacks become very, very relevant, and then you have to learn a tech stack that has a high demand out there. And I've seen a lot of MERN boot camps being run in Pakistan these days. So again, if your aim here is to get a job through a boot camp, or learn something that gets you a job immediately after you graduate, so then the tech stack you choose becomes very, very relevant, and you have to choose a tech stack that has a high demand and all. And as far as generally a general advice for the university graduates go, or people who are still working in or still studying in universities, is okay, just go with the stack. Just first of all, just define what you want to do. If you want to pursue a high demand stack that gives you a very good job, then probably MERN stack is the right stack for you, because it's very much in demand these days. And if you want to work with ML or AI, Python should be something that you should be going after for. But generally, my advice for university students is always, okay, if you're into computer science, or if you want to learn computer science, just go about learning how machines work in general, and then tech stacks doesn't matter. The tech stack can only matter if you are looking to get a job, if you want to get into high demand jobs immediately after you graduate. So that's just my take on
Yeah, thank you so much. That actually covered another top question of mine, which I wanted to ask. Like, what's the tipping point for updating parts of your tech stack, right? Like, so of course,
it.
getting a job is definitely, like, one of those tipping points, because if you're not getting a job, or your dream job in your particular tech stack, then you try to learn more technologies or stacks or frameworks, right? But what about engineers who want to get a job at remote base, right? Right. Well, what are the stacks that we hire at remote base, and any particular reason for them for engineers to apply?
For now, we hire across 15 different tech stacks. They could be on React Native, on React, on React and Node, on Vue.js, on across a lot of tech stacks. So, but to be able to become part of remote base, you necessarily don't have to learn. Your tech stack is important, but being a good engineer who has a very good understanding of machines, who has like concepts around how machines work and how machines scale, is very, very important. Because at Remotebase, we primarily work with the companies that solve problems for scale. Anybody can make a very small project and be done with it, but we primarily work with companies that solve problems for scale. So for example, talk about Civil. They have done a billion rides so far. So all of or most of their problems, they pertain to scale. So we look for engineers who can solve problems for scale, who know how machines work in general, and just can maneuver their way through that. So again, getting into remote base, you have to be very sharp around the concepts that you've learned in universities and that you've learned around in the jobs that you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, like, this thousands of people, right, who apply at remote base every week.
100%. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just going through all of them, and people from different backgrounds or different tech stacks, even the engineers that we can't hire. But yep, the demand side in terms of, like, the engineers applying at remote base is super crazy. And we just don't want to, like, disappoint everybody who apply at remote base. So any thoughts around, because there's so many questions that I see in the chat as well. But sadly, we had a little less time, but the questions over here, we would be getting back to them as well, like, after the session as well. But for now, the main question that I see is that a lot of people are talking about some different stacks on which we're currently not hiring. For example,
Mm-hmm.
Flutter. People are talking
Mm-hmm.
about .NET or C hash or Java or TensorFlow, right? Or AI ML.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Mm-hmm.
kind of piece of advice for them, or any, a quick hack for them to, still land a job at remote base or something?
So there is no quick hack if you
Yeah.
want to land a job in remote base. So my advice here for everybody here is gonna be just uh, just brush up the concepts that you already know. We always and only ask questions around the concepts that people already know. If they claim that they work with, let's say, Redis, so the interview is going to be structured in a way that it favors their. The interviewer is going to be asking questions around Redis. So it's just whatever you already know, just pitch it during the interview. That's the only advice, and that's the only advice I give to all the candidates that I interview at remote base. And as far as the stacks that we don't hire for our concerns, for example, Flutter and then PHP, and then to some extent .NET as well, unless they. So again, and it has happened in the past as well. A very good PHP engineer showed up in the interviews and said he has only worked with PHP and wants to move to Mern stack or one of the stacks that we primarily hire for, and we ended up hiring them. So again, at remote base, our pursuit is to hire engineers that are really good engineers in general, and we generally are platform agnostic to some extent, not to a lot of extent, but we are platform agnostic to some extent. So my only advice here is people who are working in Flutter or TensorFlow or whoever lands onto the remote based website and cannot find the stack that they've worked on, just ping us if they think that they're very good engineers, and probably will try to accommodate them one way or the other. Again, our pursuit here is to find really good engineers that can
Yes.
work really well with Silicon Valley based companies.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I totally understand, and thank you so much for explaining all of that to thousands of people, or, like, or hundreds of thousands of people who will be, like, watching this session afterwards as well, because, like,
No
remote
problem,
base is
man.
going to just grow more and more, and will be, like, just hire tremendous amounts of engineers in the
Yeah, yeah.
field as well.
All
So
of us are working towards that, by the way. You and I
yeah.
both, Hamza, every single day.
Yeah.
So it is going to happen, inshallah.
Yeah. So, this brings us to the end. To the end of the session. It was really nice having your presence at Remote Fest. Looking forward to see you next time. Talha. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you,
Have a
Hamza.
good
Thank
day.
you. Bye for now. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.